Howdy, guys. Attorney Walter Knott. Now, as you've noticed, I have not been as readily available as you are accustomed to when calling the disability resolution law firm because over the past 2 weeks, I've been working nonstop on restoring a property. It'll be the first rental property I've ever purchased. It was a really, really tough house, a lot of issues, but many, if not most, have been fixed at this point. I can say this to you. It has never been my full background knowledge to do all kinds of things, moldings, for example, having to mud in rooms, having to paint rooms, having to fix roofs, all that kind of stuff. But it is now winding down as a project because this upcoming Tuesday, we will officially be closing on the house. And then after that, I'm going to need about a week to kind of rest, relax, but I'll start publishing the videos specifically to the process we went through for prepping this house, getting it ready, and then the actual rental part of it. So with that said, you will have me back at the law firm starting next week, heavily on Wednesday. Now, I want to go ahead and go through a couple of things real quick. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave 5-star reviews if these videos help you. If I seem a little bit all over the place when it comes to my speech, it's because I've only got about 3 hours on me. This video is important because a lot of people kept reaching out and saying, hey, what are the punishments? What's the bottom line? What happens when something goes afoul with my disability benefits? We're going to go through those and outline them right now. Let's go ahead and begin real quick. The question is, what would be the outcome of essentially a disability investigation? Or what would be the punishments that the SSA could, put on your plate? All right. Now, the first thing you need to know about it, there are multiple types of investigations. So you can't just throw this all into like one particular thing. There's lots of them. Number one, short form CDRs. Number two, long form CDRs. Number three, congressional inquiries. Number four, OIG inquiries. Number five, Justice Department referrals. Number six, OHO inquiries. And number seven, local FO inquiries. Those are local field office inquiries. Okay. Let me go through what those are real quick. Short form CDR, real simple. They send you a short form to see if you are still disabled. You fill it out, you send it back. It's part of the thing, whether or not they believe you are still severely impaired to the point which you should receive disability benefits. Number two, long form CDR. It's a longer form. There's more of a chance that basically a further and deeper investigation is going to take place. They want to know, essentially what's going on, what doctors, what have you been doing, what have you been up to, what hobbies are you doing, etc. The whole point of that is, are you still disabled? Number three, congressional inquiry. Sometimes, and it's not as rare as you think, the SSA office, whether it's the field office or regional office or potentially even OIG or, some other division, will receive a notification from essentially a congressional individual. Okay, so we're talking about, could be a House rep, could be a senator, could be somebody else, but it's somebody in a congressional position. And they will send out a request to find out information related to a particular claim with the SSA. Next one, OIG inquiry. These should be the scariest for you. When an OIG inquiry comes up, the basic bottom line thing is that they're looking for fraud. And they're looking for fraud that you might have committed in some way, fashion, or form, whether you're working an extra job, saying you could do things that you couldn't, whatever. But the bottom line is, they're looking for fraud. Next one, Justice Department referral. Actually, I take that back. The Justice Department referral, that would be the scariest. When OIG gets involved, they're looking at like, should you potentially go to the Justice Department? Should you potentially okay, maybe you weren't as disabled as you claimed they actually were, right? That's like the OIG department. And sometimes they can refer it over to the Justice Department. But when you get the Justice Department involved, that is not a good sign because that means they're looking at criminal proceedings on top of the Office of Inspector General's proceedings, which is OIG, which are the attorneys on behalf of the SSA. So kind of the bottom line here is that you really don't want an investigation interacting with the Justice Department because that means crim law, and you do not want to deal with a criminal legal situation. Next one, OHO inquiry. That's where the Office of Hearing Operations basically does an inquiry. That's where administrative law judges or potentially, appellate administrative judges go ahead and review a case and say, wait a minute, there's something fishy here. We might want to go ahead and have investigators take a look at this. And then the final one is the cutesy one, the local field office inquiry. That's where basically the local field office sends out a request. Usually what happens with these is somebody will call the local field office, although the SSA is not putting online a lot of the local field office phone numbers right now. They're actually taking them off so that you have to call this mass 800 number. But usually what happens is a neighbor or a jealous boyfriend or girlfriend will call into the SSA local field office, and they'll go ahead and tattletale on you, say something that could hurt you. And then all of a sudden, the local field office will send up an FO inquiry to OIG to go ahead and begin the CDI process. So that's how that works. Now, the outcomes depend on what is at stake. Okay, I'm going to say that again because it's important. The outcomes depend on what is at stake. All right, so let's go through this real quick. When it comes to essentially what could happen to you, like what types of punishments there are, these are the most common ones. There's smaller ones, but these are like the headliners. Number one, reduction of benefits. Number two, losing your benefits in total. Number three, restricting your ability to receive or apply for benefits for a certain amount of time. Number four, financial punishment, such as an overpayment. Number five, possibly even criminal charges. That's where you're not just having to pay money, but you're also potentially having to do something else. The big thing that people really don't like is having to go to jail or prison. So let me go through those real quick. And I'll give you examples. That way you've kind of got a well-rounded understanding of how it works. Number one, reduction of benefits. So let's say that they do an inquiry and they're studying you. They send an investigator out. The investigator sees that you are not actually living at the address that you claim you're living at. You are actually living at somebody else's address. Well, they find, okay, this is the person that's on the title of that address that you're staying at. And so then they call you up and say, hey, are you living at this address? You're like, no, of course not. I'm just there a little bit. Anyway, at that point, they'll say, okay, no, we have proof that you have been living at that address. And as a result of that, we are going to use for SSI purposes what's called the in-kind support maintenance rule, which is where they reduce your benefits because somebody is providing to you essentially, a place to stay. And, then they could ask you, but since you've already said no, yada, 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 then the whole question becomes, okay, well, are you paying them? Well, you said that you weren't staying there. So, and then it becomes this difficult situation where the SSA has to do what's easiest for them, which is basically, doing an in-kind support maintenance for that particular address. Okay. The next one, losing your benefits. This is way more common now than it has ever been in the history of Social Security benefits, specifically disability benefits and SSI, like ever. And here's what's happening. So people are losing their benefits at record amounts. President Trump, buying through Commissioner Saul, increased and pushed the CDI units to investigate people and also go through that 8-step sequential process to remove benefits, right? They created a system that was very aggressive at finding people who they could potentially get off of the benefit train for, in this case, disability benefits. That train was not really slowed down much. It wasn't. That train really wasn't slowed down much. And what I mean by that is that when President Biden was originally campaigning, had his pre-White House website, President Biden multiple times he made the statement on his website that the amount of effort that has to go into obtaining disability benefits is almost this extreme, it's way too much. It's ridiculous. Now your brain would think, okay, if that's the result, and he was selling as part of his pre-White House agenda that essentially, having people do these reviews where they check to see if they're still disabled all the friggin' time, like, over and over and over and over and over again in repetition every 2 years. He was arguing that was excessive. That was his, saying, look, they go through so much to get onto this program. Doing this many CDRs is excessive. It's not right. We shouldn't be doing it. But since he's been in office, the amount of investigations and the amount of CDI units, which were required by Congress to increase the amount, one per state kind of gig, have essentially increased. Now, there's another thing that you have to keep in mind with this, which is that during COVID, a significant amount of them weren't occurring. And he kind of took over, right? right when COVID was like in its middle area, all right, when things were, when the SSA was quasi shut down. And so as a result of that, you have kind of messed up statistics. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he's now got to play catch up. And when you play catch up, you're processing significantly more in a short period of time, which just makes you look bad. It makes you look more evil. I can tell you this. When it comes to CDRs, they're going to be doing a lot of them all the time. No matter what they say in Congress, no matter which politician is shooting from the hip, they're going to be saying, they're going to be doing, in my opinion, a significant amount of reviews of you guys, more so than has ever been seen before. And the reason why is that with technology, they have computers that will scan your new medical documentation, and the computers can auto decide whether or not the terminology is present to require further review by some other individual, or just shoot it through, get it done, move on to the next one. So why this is important is that we are, in many eyes of the congressional leaders, spending a significant amount of money on disability benefits. It is interesting the amount of effort that is put into reviewing people and their benefits compared to the amount of effort that it comes down to with funding other countries and our, let's call it nation control procedures. We put a base in their country where we have a mini little area of sovereign land where we go ahead and defend them, and that other countries are afraid to attack them as a result. But we basically get preferential buy options. We get to buy oil super cheap. We get to buy all kinds of things super cheap. Then we ship them over here and overcharge Americans. That's kind of the weird thing about this, is that the American people kind of, sort of always get the short end of the stick. Things are made super cheap, overseas, but when they come here, we're paying over list. When it comes to us getting benefits that we paid for, they are going to put us through these really difficult investigations to see whether or not we are the person we are. And I want to point something out before we go to the next one. I think this is crucial for you to understand. The idea that some people will go through investigations is where we're at right now. Like right now, that's where we're at. Some people are going to be investigated. It's just the way it is. Whether it's a machine that's scanning their paperwork, looking for auto text that will tell it you're getting better, you're not getting better, or maybe there's some illegal actions going on here. Because they have computers that can basically screen through your documentation. And if it reads through your medical documents and says, hey, you were, you were playing field hockey, or you were doing this, or you were doing that, like it'll auto, assess, grab that terminology, and boom, that's a red flag in the documentation. So, okay. And right there, that's okay. Samuel hints, you're safe if you're not hiding anything. I disagree with that in total. I have worked with more homeless people than 100% of every American. And I mean in a direct way, like talking with them, interacting with them, helping them. I have worked with more homeless people than almost, I have to say almost, I can't say definitively, but 100% of the population in America. And I guess you could say a food. Oh, but on Wednesdays I help with that. I'm not going to go into. Anyway, the point is, when you are a person viewing a different class of individuals, right? So lawyer, having a job, homeless, no job, right? A different class of individual, okay? A vocational class where they just don't have money coming in. You see that when it comes to you not doing anything wrong, you not hiding anything, when you're part of that class of individuals, you getting arrested. Doesn't matter what, doesn't matter what the right and the wrong aspect of it is, you will still at some point get arrested. You were in the wrong place at the right time. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. You were in the right place at the wrong time, or whatever combination you want to put there. But you will at some point get arrested. There will be something, some way, somewhere where you will be treated improperly by the law. And as a result of that, the law will go ahead and interact with you in a negative way. Whether you think you did something wrong or not, whether you believed you were being legal or not. And that's one of the other things that I think is really interesting is that most Americans think that if they just act moral or ethical within what their beliefs of moral and ethical are, that they'll be okay. But you have no clue whatsoever what's on the law books. You don't. You don't know what even torts are. Most of you don't. Most of you don't know what a tort is. Look it up. Look it up. It's important. It's super important. All right. Anyways, guys, next one here. And guys, I do see you all calling in right now. I know we're going to do this video and then we're going to do that video. So just give me a chance to finish up this video. Next one. Wait, I didn't get to make my point. Losing your benefits. Like I said, right now, as it stands, we are accustomed to and okay with a lot of individuals getting a CDR. But I need to make something very clear. The computer technology is catching up to the point where every single person receiving disability benefits can and will, at some point in the future, get an investigation every single year. I want to say that again because that is the future, and I believe it will occur within the next 3 to 5 years. Every single disabled individual will likely go through an investigation, whether it's just a CDR, they send out some forms, check on your medical, see if you're still disabled, or perhaps, okay, they do a full CDI unit, they have somebody follow you around to check and see if you're still disabled. I need to make something very clear to you guys, which is that Congress pushed and required the SSA to get all these CDI units set up with all these offices across the United States, one per state. They didn't do that with the intent to not use them. They did that with the intent to have them be churning out reports, reviewing individuals, and seeing who can stay on disability benefits and who can get kicked off of disability benefits. And it's all under the same theme and logic as a penny earned is a penny saved is a penny earned, right? Okay. Now, with that said, we'll go to number 3, restricting your ability to receive or apply for benefits for a certain amount of time. What I mean by that one is a very, very simple idea. If you go ahead and do something like with SSI benefits, where you sell off a property, there are certain time limits that you have to watch, because if you do it and then apply and you run afoul of something, because, you know, SSI is a poverty-based program. So if you sell off something relatively expensive at a very cheap price, that's not accurate, like you give your house to your family member, they can ban you for an extended period of time from getting or receiving or even applying for disability benefits, in this case, SSI benefits. So the point here is that's another way that they can go ahead and punish you, is to go ahead and restrict your ability to apply, and for how many months and sometimes even years it will take before you can go ahead and receive benefits again. Next one, number 4, financial punishment, such as an overpayment. Overpayments are becoming rampant. They're all over the place. There's not a single day that goes by that the law firm doesn't get a phone call about an overpayment claim. You guys collect overpayment claims so easily and so well. And it's so many things at this point. It's lack of education on what type of work, you know, you're able to do that's within the regulations. So you earn over the amount and all of a sudden overpayment. It's where the SSA finds that you could do something that which you said you couldn't do, and now they're hitting you with an overpayment back to when you first received disability benefits. It's anything and everything. An overpayment where basically they're as small as, I've seen them $200, I've seen them up to over $100,000. So, you know, it's one of those things. Next one. And this is the final punishment of the major categories, but basically possibly even criminal charges. All right. So we need to spend a moment on this one because this is the most important out of all of them. Criminal charges. They are rare. They're becoming less rare, but they are rare because they're doing more investigations, so they're catching more stuff. Criminal charges are brought forward with Social Security disability recipients when fraud exists. What levels of fraud can get you in trouble that would equate to criminal charges? Well, and this is going to sound out there, but literally photos of you on a jet ski, would be enough if you had impairments that would limit your ability to use a jet ski, whether they are mental, PTSD, or physical. It could be some disc issue in your back. Those photos alone would essentially be enough to go ahead and cause a fraud review. And which is why it's so important to stamp those things before you're found disabled. And as a result of that, there could be a financial assessment against you beyond an overpayment, like an actual financial hit, or actual time in jail and or prison. So when you go to Jamaica and you're riding a horse on the beaches, so when you go to Florida and you're on a jet ski, the tough thing is this. Okay, I'm going to tell you another secret about what's going on in the government. As you guys know, they have facial recognition software. They've been using it for a really long time. They're getting better at it. They're getting really good with it. So the next thing is this. The government has the ability to investigate you, and the government has the ability to search Facebook and the photos that are on there and do facial scans. So even when you think you're just like not having people take photos of you, and somebody captures a photo with the brand new iPhone or Samsung or whatever, those new phones have incredible detail to their photography, right? I mean, we megapixels beyond what we ever expected a phone like that to be able to do. Okay. Some people shoot entire music videos on a cell phone like that. And here's the reason why. It's because the technology is so much beyond what it used to be back in the day that even when you are standing 200 feet away on a beach while people are taking jet ski photos, they can still use facial recognition with a lot of these newer phones that are coming out once you post it online to see who, what, when, and where. And that's your face right there. So the future of essentially Social Security disability benefits is going to look more like a scared claimant situation, where a lot of people are going to essentially feel afraid of going out into the world because they don't want some photo being taken of them, or heaven forbid some video where they're in the background, they didn't know, and then boom, the government uses their facial recognition to go ahead and cross-check it and say, okay, there's that person. That's more into the future over the next 5 years. And how will that be used? It's pretty simple and straightforward. A culture about receiving disability benefits will be created for people to be afraid once they receive them of losing them, but also losing them with the context of the government using against that claimant, the beneficiary, essentially some photography or video evidence that somebody else shot that they posted up on Facebook, and then boom, here we go. Now, some of you are thinking this technology isn't where it's at, it's not there yet, etc. Well, look at January 6th. They were able to use facial recognition software on all those people's faces. It's very easy for them to do it. Now, imagine that you have a much larger investigation budget, which is what they did with the CDI units. Congress said, we want you to set up a lot of these. The disability field is evolving, where getting people onto disability benefits is going to be very difficult. And also, essentially, staying on them is going to be equally difficult. Here's why that matters. People who are disabled, they obviously can't work to afford things for the most part. I mean, they could do little jobs here and there, but they can't do the full, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. They can't do that. As a result of this, people who receive benefits with the culture of more criminal investigations will create this fear culture in the disability community. And those who are on benefits will lead a much more shadowed life, living indoors, not going out that much, etc. Back in the day, the way it used to work, let's see. Hold on, I got a question here. Love Pugs. Walter, what if there are pictures from years ago before you became disabled? I don't know. Yeah, if there's pictures from you way back in the day and they're digi-stamped, with the date on them way back before you were disabled, that's totally fine. That's outside of the purview of this situation. But if these are photos, essentially, that are more recent, or they're not date stamped, then you got a problem. So what does the future look like with the types of punishments that the SSA will be doling out? Well, the main one will just be kicking people off of disability benefits. The idea is that if they can kick off more people, the trust funds will continue forward, they'll do better, etc. But there is a problem with this theme. The overall issue with this that I see is that Americans are usually getting the opposite of the benefit of the doubt. All right, that's why we have disability attorneys, to figure out how to give them the benefit of the doubt, how to get them through the program. But once again, I'll say it again, and I think it's important, the American people usually do not get the benefit of the doubt. Okay, so let's say you're having a good day, you're going out shopping, they have an investigator that's watching you, they take a video of you walking around, you don't have your cane when you normally need it. Okay, you took a bunch of pain medications that day, you were strong, you were savvy, you were good to go. And as a result of that, you didn't need your cane. Boom, there's a video of you not using a cane. Boom, the CDA unit submits it for an ROI. The ROI report is created. The report is submitted back to DDS. DDS uses that to find that you are not disabled. So, thank you, Shirley. Thank you. With your coffee, indeed. Thank you for the $3.99 donation. Very cool, very cool. So I wanted to do this video because I wanted to explain in a futuristic fashion where this whole thing is going. But the punishments, once again, reduction of benefits, losing your benefits, restricting your ability to receive or apply for benefits in the future over a certain period of time, financial punishment where they take money from you, and then possibly even criminal charges. It would not be outside of the government's interests to make the culture of receiving disability benefits a negative one, because you get fewer applicants. You'll just get more people waiting to basically file for early retirement. It is my belief that the heyday golden era of Social Security benefits have just ended. And the reason why is that Commissioner Saul was the first couple of nails in the coffin. That was your 2016, 2017 stuff. But what's happening going forward is that the country recognizes, and it's not the first time, the country's gone through many of these ups and downs with how much benefits they're paying out, stuff like that, especially with VA benefits. VA benefits, if you go read through the history, there were times in history where, like a massive, much larger percentage of the US budget went to essentially VA benefits. And most people that would come, out of war situations would go into VA benefits. There used to be a lot more benefits available to the kids and wife or husband of those individuals who, fought in a war, etc. There were even more benefits available to them. It's actually, the VA benefits have kind of a cooler background story, to be honest with you. Now, with that said, I think this is incredibly important. The future of disability benefits is something that is pro-American. I know it sounds weird to say that because it's a social insurance. And when people think about socialism, they get really upset. But the reality is that disability benefits is a pro-American thing. You pay into it, and what do you get? You get covered in case you become disabled. You pay into it, and what do you get? If one of your kids becomes disabled, it uses some of your benefits to help them out. But the problem is that going forward, there can be a culture created to ultimately slow down the applicant pool and reduce call-out, if you will, the amount of beneficiaries to the point where the program can restabilize. Ultimately, and this is the thing that worries me at night, ultimately, no matter what age you are and whatever impairments you have, and I think the category of people that are the ones I worry about the most. Okay, so let me give you an example. A lot of people that have seizures, they're like, I'm not going to the hospital again. They're not going to do anything. They don't do anything. Every time I have a seizure, I go to the hospital. They're not going to do anything. If you don't go to the hospital, then they don't have a notation that you had a seizure. And it's like you never had a seizure. And the seizure game for Social Security benefits is a numbers game. How many seizures have you had over this month, this many months, etc. So the point of what I'm getting at with this whole scenario is that these investigations can be used against you somewhat easily. And the future of disability benefits, the real future of it is not pro-beneficiary. And that I have a problem with because we keep hearing politicians use the same phrase over and over: pro-American, for Americans, for the American people, stars and stripes, my fellow Americans, right? We keep hearing these phrases over and over. But if you look at the things that are the most pro-American, we seem to keep getting more and more limitations. And in this case, these are the punishments. And there are more punishments and more people being scanned and more people going through that process. At what point do the American people fear the Social Security Administration just like they fear the Internal Revenue Service? Think about it. Let me know your thoughts. We're going to go ahead and catch up in about 5 to 10 minutes. That's where we'll be doing the video where I answer questions. I know we're starting super late. As you can tell, I'm super tired. But basically, my life is going to be slowing down in a big way after Tuesday. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. I will catch you a little bit later. And please take care of yourself. Get more sleep than I do. And we will go from there. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave 5-star reviews. Give me about 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll start that video where I answer questions for free on YouTube for the general disabled community. All right, guys, I'll catch you a little bit later. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.